Greetings everyone and welcome to another episode of Impact with Elle. I hope that you're enjoying our content. If you are, please remember to like and subscribe. I am excited to bring more topics to you guys and hopefully foster continued discussions. Today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about cars. I'm not a gearhead, though I do like a fun car. But it kind of symbolizes a little bit of what's going on in the broader society. And I thought, it was a really good way of looking at things and maybe, broadening some perspectives. So first of all, I have to say that cars are not what they used to be. It seems that cars are all about safety today, and that's their main selling feature and the main feature everyone's focused on. And that is more of a generational shift that seems to be focusing on safety over freedom, where cars used to be freedom of the road, freedom to explore, freedom to feel the wind in your hair. So that's an interesting social shift. I will say that I feel like cars now treat us like we are idiots. The safe driving features make me personally insane. I hate automated emergency braking. That to me is just super dangerous. I also hate lane keep assist. I mean, I don't even know, you can go on. The seat belts locking up, there's this presumption that you are too much of an imbecile to get behind the wheel of a car and keep it in its lane. Honestly, there should be a minimum level of competence, and otherwise, why are you driving? So I don't really understand why we don't have that presumption anymore. What I will say is that all of these mandates about safety gear are making cars heavier, which is kind of a silent conflict with the fact that the government is trying to mandate more gas mileage standards, which again is kind of, ramming into this increase in safety requirements. If you looked back to the 1980s, that car, there was a couple that I looked at are getting around 40 to 45 miles per gallon in the 80s. But that car, compared to the most fuel efficient one today, which is 41 miles per gallon, that's not a hybrid, is the most fuel efficient car today, that car is 1,000 pounds heavier. So technology has really been hindered by what the government has been ramming down our throats on this. It's kind of like the government's like the guy who breaks your leg and then hands you a crutch and then a bill for the crutch. I will say that the latest mandate is for a 50 mile per gallon at 2026. I think that's what the government is saying that car makers need to meet. And that's not technically possible without doing some pretty extreme things. So, I will say that those extreme things are going to be things that are really going to, be problematic to consumers. So, for example, smaller engines and bigger vehicles. So, in order to compensate for the lack of power and displacement, they're heavily turbocharging those engines. Well, that adds a lot of pressure and complexity, which means that the longevity of the vehicle is going way down. And what does it add? Really, like about 3 miles per gallon. Is it really worth it? Especially considering that it's so complex to take these vehicles apart. They're going to require more downtime, and the parts are going to be more expensive. So again, if it takes more time to repair, that's labor costs. That's what you and I have to pay, and we have to get new cars more frequently. Overall, I think that the costs and impact is a big loss to our, to us, the world as a whole. An example is, these are fleet standards. So for a car manufacturer, an example is, let's say they make a truck that gets 25 miles per gallon, and the mandate is everybody has to get 50. So they're going to have a bunch of electric or hybrid cars to offset that. But despite what you might hear in the media, electric cars are not popular. They're not sellable. Only 1% of the vehicles sold. And by that, people are being bribed into it with all of the tax incentives and deals, and the fact that it's becoming more and more difficult to actually own a regular car. And Biden's been very open about that ambition. And interestingly, the auto industry does seem committed to that. Nobody's talked about the fact that electric batteries are extremely complex and a safety risk to some extent. I mean, we all are aware of the rules around flying. How many times do they ask us if we have lithium batteries or certain things in our carry-on or in our luggage? Same thing with the post office. But nobody's raising the issues when it comes to driving on the road. Road shock, temperature extremes, there's lots of things that can go wrong, and lithium batteries are prone to runaway combustion. I don't hear much being said about that because it's not politically correct, I guess. I don't think a lot of people, they might remember the Volkswagen cheating scandal on emissions, but most people only saw the headlines and never really dug into what the story was there. So, in fact, Volkswagen was leading by a landslide in diesel technology. And I think people probably remember that, especially, the Europeans among us. They were making diesel-powered, affordable vehicles that got over 50 miles per gallon for around $23,000. Those vehicles could go 700 miles, and those engines had about a 300,000 mile life. But that doesn't fit the government agenda. So they got pretty viciously smacked. And that was the cheating scandal that I mentioned. So what happened was there was a tiny fractional difference on one very specific test under very specific conditions out of all of the categories that was found to be incorrect. And in fact, no harm was ever established related to this tiny difference. But nevertheless, the government came down super hard on Volkswagen, and they had a multi-billion-dollar settlement they had to pay. And today, Volkswagen is now calling itself Volkswagen. So they are fully on board. And it's really sad because if we wanted to worry about the environment, what they were working on really would have made a bigger impact. They actually had a hybrid diesel in test that was getting 260 miles to the gallon. 260 miles in 1 gallon. That's phenomenal. Now you can buy out of their lineup, not that, you can buy the ID4, which starts at $40,000 and has a best case total range of 260 miles. And it's, I don't know, I look at it, it's twice as expensive and it goes half as far as their older lineup. How is that an advancement? I don't know. I'll leave you with that. You guys dig into that. It's pretty sad if you ask me. People are really concerned about gas mileage issues because they focus on emissions. Well, emissions were solved in the 1990s, so it hasn't been an issue for over 25 years. In fact, there is almost no emissions that coming out of a tailpipe other than CO2. And so the new boogeyman is climate change. And so we have to hate cars because of that. So, it just it's always something new. And when they can't get what they want, they make up a new story to justify what they're trying to do. And if you ask me what they're trying to do, and by they I mean is government and the people in power who want to retain power, is they want to regulate out combustion engines. They want to sell transportation as a service. They want to make owning a car prohibitively expensive. I mean, look at it. Loans now are going out 8 years. We can't really go out longer than that because the collateral won't be worth anything at that point, especially since their longevity is going down. So, this vision of this sort of subscription vehicle payment plan where you have an app that, your government car shows up when you need it, kind of like an Uber, that is fairly reminiscent of the USSR. In that most people couldn't own a car. It wasn't possible for them, only the elites and the select few. It's sort of a frightening way to look at it, and our ability to choose and freedom is being taken away from us through slowly increasing government controls in the most semi-innocuous ways. So I'm hoping that this might open your guys' eyes up a little bit to how it's creeping in everywhere, really. And it's up to us to say enough is enough. One final point on cars. I hope you know that they're tracking your data and sharing that data without your permission and without your knowledge. So yes, your fancy cars with all this electric stuff inside of them now are absolutely tracking you and reporting what you are doing. I don't know. I think that's a violation of privacy. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll be back with more controversial episodes.